Ben Fagan here with another episode of Career Cash, and on this episode, I am joined by Monica Rojas, former college athlete, now startup founder, and Monica shares her wisdom on why it's important to live a life full of gratitude, how to find your passions, and why she is and always will be a student for life. Let's get to it. And Monica, I'm very excited to have you here and excited to dive into some pretty cool topics. So welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I'm glad to be here.
Very cool. So you're off to do a lot of great things. And I know you're kind of in this transitional period, which I think is really unique and great timing for the podcast too, to talk a little bit about that. But before we dive too much into that, can you kind of catch everyone up to speed as to the things that you kind of do on a daily basis and what you're up to?
Yeah. So I actually graduated from Lynn in 2019 with my master's in entrepreneurship. And since then, I just kind of been working for Tech Hub South Florida, where I am full time now. I am the community and startups manager there. So I really work on building South Florida's tech ecosystem, right? So that includes developing talent. How do we retain students from Lynn to stay down here with awesome jobs and build the talent pool down here? Another thing I do is branding. How do we brand South Florida's tech community that we're an attractive place to work and live and even thrive? But my main focus for Tech Hub South Florida is the startup community. How do I support local founders and even just create that ecosystem where we're a community that gives before we ask? So that's what I do on a daily basis. And I actually am really excited to announce that I have accepted a new role for a startup in Miami called Upstream. And I'm going to be the community, thanks. And I'm going to be the community operations manager there. But I'm also still going to be involved with Tech Hub on the side and like being their number one volunteer in regards to the startup community.
So big business moves all over the place.
Yeah.
Great stuff here. One thing that, from coming from a similar background in terms of playing college sports, and just, I think in general, something that always fascinates me when I, get to talk to people is how they kind of got into the field that they are in now. So you said you got your master's in entrepreneurship. And so was that something that you always wanted to do, or what kind of led you into that field? And then more specifically within the tech community, how did you get into that area?
Right. So I actually played soccer at Palm Beach Atlantic for my bachelor's. And I ended up having 1 year left of eligibility. So Lynn was actually like our number one rival, and I had some friends there, and they knew I wasn't playing my last year. So they're like, hey, why don't you come to Lynn? And they talked to the coach. They ended up offering me a scholarship to do my master's. And like the cool thing about Lynn is they have a 12-month master where it's like, I only have 1 year of eligibility. Like, how could this be any more perfect? So a lot of my friends were studying marketing for their masters, but I'm like, okay, I've like my friends know that I'm always the one that has like these crazy ideas. I love brainstorming different business ideas. I'm like, I want to do entrepreneurship. And at Lynn for my master's, I actually met a professor. She's not there anymore, but her name was Dr. Lori Olivier. And she was an entrepreneurship and innovation professor there. And she's the one that kind of helped me and allowed me to get off the ground with a startup that I started in class. So it was an 8-week class that allowed me to start my business, which was like Airbnb of storage for college students. So let's say if you had extra room in your house, you had an extra closet space, you want to rent it out to students, they could save money on storage and the other student can make money. So luckily, we ended up getting invited to the FAU Tech Runway program through Lynn, through the connections that I made with my professor. So that's kind of how I started getting involved with the startup community. But obviously, as a startup founder, I had to find a way to make some extra cash while I was working. So that's when I started working for Palm Beach Tech, the local nonprofit that was building the Palm Beaches into a tech hub. But that was back in like 2019. So since then, Palm Beach Tech transformed into Tech Hub South Florida because their mission was greater than just building the Palm Beaches into a tech hub, and it was to build South Florida into a tech hub. So I've been doing that full time for about a year now, and that's kind of how I got involved with the tech community. Just like when you open one door, the other one opens for you, and it keeps going and going until like you're finally into your career path. So I know that was like kind of like a long-winded answer, but
no, it's good. And you touched on a lot of great things. I want to go back to one thing that you did mention, was this this idea of you started this startup in a class. It was the 8-week class, you got going with it. Really cool idea. One thing that I think is really interesting is, as a student, how can you go about being taken seriously, with an idea that you might have thought up in class and are really trying to move forward with this project? If this is something, I wanted to do, I came up with an idea, but I'm a student. How can I go out into the quote real world and be looked at as a student and be looked at as a peer and a professional?
Yeah. So even till like I'm 25 now, I turned 25 last week. And the thing that has allowed me to become or to get to where I am today is be a student for life. And obviously you can't be 35 and like ask for the same help because it would be a little bit weird. But when you're young, you have to take advantage of the part that you are a student and that teachers and faculty and adults want to help young students because they see themselves in you, right? So never be afraid to ask for help and always act like you're trying. Like, hey, what can I do to be better? Give me some feedback here. And always ask, how can I help you? And then eventually they'll be like, how can I help you? So it's like creating that effect of like, I want to be here. I want to succeed. Teach me, So student for life mentality.
I love that. Student for life. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
On the road to building these businesses, and I think just getting into careers, whatever it is, whether it's entrepreneurship or biology, doesn't matter. Any industry that you want to get in, but I think specifically with entrepreneurship and business like that, it's a long and winding road. And in this world we live in of instant
gratification,
exactly, it becomes tough. And I think about this too, is like, I'm 24 years old and I think about the things that I do here at Lynn or outside businesses that, I'm trying to grow and get bigger and bigger. And it's natural to want to be like, all right, I want to get to the end or the finish.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you personally, kind of remain patient or find patience to, go through the process and enjoy each step of the journey? How do you go about that to get to where you want to go?
So kind of like you, Ben, I played soccer in college, like I mentioned earlier, and that is what allowed me to join, to really appreciate the process. To give you a background on myself, I was actually in high school, my freshman year, I was one of the worst players on the team. And luckily I had the support of my parents who, were able to supply me with a local trainer. And gradually every year I got better. Every year I was like, okay, I'm putting in the work and the results are showing. It's not like, 6'2", I'm 5'2", right? So obviously it's not my height and, I'm not that fast either, but my work ethic was just not it was irreplaceable and it was unmatched. So that allowed me to get where I was today and even get a scholarship for college. So for me, it's really important to respect the process, right? So it's not about doing something consistent for 1 week or oh, great, I went to an event, my first time ever, now I'm going to get a job opportunity. No, it's about being consistent with your actions. And when you do the right actions and you surround yourself with, mentors or even professors that see you trying, the results will always be there. So I would say respect the process and be consistent. And know that and it, you have your bad days. Obviously you're not going to be or sometimes you'll be well, I'm doing everything right and it's not happening. Yeah, because it takes a while and it takes that one person to recognize you.
Absolutely. I think what's interesting, kind of going on to diving a little bit deeper into the process. And the reason why I want to do this is because in the sports world, and I think in other worlds, anytime the process gets brought up, it almost is used as kind of like a Band-Aid answer for things. Right. You have tough time, trust the process. Oh, you trust the process. And it's the throw off answer. Oh, you're a young student, trust the process. You'll get there one day.
Yeah.
So it's in many instances, it's kind of dismissive. And so Can you kind of give a little bit of a definition? It can be a personal definition for what it means to you, but what does the process mean? What is the process for you, for somebody who's heard that, but wants to have a little bit better understanding of it?
Yeah, no. So this is a really good question. And actually, I used to say this to our interns all the time, where it's embrace your struggles, enjoy, being broke and enjoy, not doing good in the class or not doing as good as you want to do. Enjoy, not knowing or feeling nervous and feeling uncomfortable, because finally, when you do make it or you have the big break, it the feeling that you get, that high is more oh, wow, this makes all the lows so much more worth it. So for me, it just really understand that there is going to be like that moment that will break through, right?
Definitely. And so finishing up this lovely discussion on the process, how have you used the process? Because we talked about on the sports realm of things. How have you used those things within your business and your career in getting to where you want to go? How does the process apply there?
Yeah. So for me, I actually this is a good example. I started as a part-time employee for Palm Beach Tech before it became Tech Hub, and I was doing events, right? So I made sure that I was always at the events, like I was really doing my best and showing my boss that like I'm always reliable, right? Like there's not one event where it's like, oh, Monica didn't show up or Monica didn't do this. I was always like that shoulder to lean on. And eventually I got offered a full-time role. So I was the third employee ever to be full-time at Tech Hub. So once I started doing that, I started serving my team really well. I then started serving my community really well. And it got to the point where now I built a personal brand, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm very respected in the startup and the tech community down here because I deliver and I bring value to my community, and it's allowed many doors to open. So throughout the journey, I was able to just use my work ethic to actually, like I've gotten a few, like to be completely honest, I've gotten a few more job opportunities, but like I knew Upstream was right one. So people recognize you for your hard work and the value that you give.
And so you said you got, a few more job opportunities, and
yeah,
how do you know, like if you're presented with that, how do you know what's the right one? How do you kind of go about deciding that if you have multiple things on the table?
Yeah. So, and it was hard because I learned this like this past month because I just, put in my 2 weeks not too long ago, where it's like, okay, figure out, like write down all the jobs that you have or all the opportunities you have available, and figure out like what gets you excited. Like when you write down something like, okay, community, okay, that gets me excited. I like to do that. And then also look at the company's values and where they're headed and the opportunity that's presented. So something that I like to do is say, okay, is there room for growth? Because at the end of the day, like I see myself as a leader in my community, not just a manager. So, okay, like how can I get there, right? So that way the employer knows what your end goals are. Another thing I like to do is look at their diversity piece. Like, is this a company culture that I want to be a part of? And another thing I like to look at is the mission. So do I believe in the mission? Like where is this headed? 5 years from now, do I see myself working here? And at the end of the day, it's about figuring out what your role will be for the company. Because at the end of the day, it's like if you want to work for a company, then that's a little bit different. But you know that you want to be a leader in a company and you have that position, then take that. So understand what you want at what point of your life.
Definitely. So one thing that I do want to kind of dive into is if you people at home haven't caught on to this already, you can feel it through the computer, through the headphones. You're an incredibly passionate person.
Yeah.
And you seem to really love the things that you do, which is exciting to be around. And those, I really enjoy being around people like that. So thank you for this. But so how do you go about finding your passion or things that you're passionate about, especially if you're talking to somebody who's like, I have some hobbies, I like things, but like there's nothing that I've found yet that lights my fire and really gets me going. So how would you help somebody like that?
Yeah, so there's two ways I think you can obviously start. One is volunteering. So let's say if you might have an interest in videography, find through your community, through your teachers, hey, do you guys know a videographer in the area? I just want to shadow them to see if I actually enjoy being on set and figuring that out, right? So, and not just that, you'll end up providing value, an extra set of hands for that videographer, because one day that might be you, right? So imagine if you had one extra pair of hands when you're already struggling, so they're going to value you even more. So one thing is that get involved. Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, how can I help you? I don't know this, but I'm willing to learn this, right? So be a student for life. That's one. Another thing is kind of just dip your toes into different things as well. Like when you're at work, let's say if you're doing, you're working at a local marketing agency, ask your boss, like, hey, like, do you mind if I try this for a day or try that? And that way you're able to know, okay, I like this a lot more than I do that. So don't be afraid to just be in the not knowing, right? Being in the unknown. That's like a better way to say it.
Yeah. It was funny because I was having this conversation yesterday about, you know, the unknown and the things that come on the other side of it. And it kind of goes back to, you know, the whole thing with the process of that. To me, the process kind of gives a little bit of comfort in that, of saying like, hey, I know that if I keep doing these things, I'll get to where I want to go eventually. And that gives you some solace in the unknown. And I think also just playing that tape in your head of, instead of being the unknown, having to be like, oh, I need to figure everything out, going, you know, flip it a little bit and say like, hey, the unknown is the unknown. Let me embrace it. Let me enjoy it. Let that excite me, you know, and have that tape play in your head. Now, just out of curiosity, this is, you know, off the cuff here, is do you have anything that kind of plays in your head, any mantras or any things that you say to yourself to kind of keep you on the right track that you found helpful?
Yeah, actually that is a good question, but I meant to say this earlier too, and I want to give you guys an example. When I first started at Palm Beach Tech, or Tech Hub now, I was the event specialist, and then I got promoted to the membership and inclusion specialist. And then now I'm the community and startups manager. That all happened under a year. So it's not like I knew I wanted to do community right away. Like, I had different roles and I was able to see what I thrived in, and I created my own role. So you're able to do that as well. Cause then, like, obviously everyone knows I'm in the community and everyone knows that I manage all the startups. So that's kind of how you get there too. It's not like you go from being a student at Lynn to like a marketing specialist or something like that. No, you're going to grow into your role. So I meant to say that. But something I do like to do, and this changed my life. So I'm all into for gratitude, right? So I always write down 3 things I'm grateful for in the morning. So that way I start off on a high. You know, I'm grateful for my family, or the fact that I had a great night's sleep, or I'm grateful that I get to work out with my friends, like little things. And that way you're like, okay, you're already on a routine. And then you kind of just write down, you know, or even start saying this to yourself, is like, you know, today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So that allows you to be very excited for the rest of the day, because you're like, okay, today's a gift. Like, I'm excited. I can give all my energy to what I do. And it really changed my life, because it allowed me to just, you know, kind of get out of my comfort zone and embrace the challenges. And at first I didn't even believe it, because, like, you know, you kind of just, you see things on YouTube, or you hear like your mentor saying, do this, do that. But obviously it takes a process to do that. So now I've learned how to actually live a life with gratitude. And I wish I would have known this in college, because I would have been a better student, a better athlete, and I probably would have had a better career. I mean, I don't know about that, but like,
don't beat yourself up in that.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. And I really love the simplicity of it. And especially with, you know, what you mentioned is, and I think you said it really well, is, you know, that they don't have to be massive things that you're grateful for. You know, it doesn't have to be like, oh, you know, I just got a, you know, $20,000 raise, you know, I got a brand new car. You know, it could be like, I had a great night's sleep. You know, when you're doing that in the beginning of the day, you know, you're starting the day, want to know, you're feeling good about yourself. And I think that when you were saying this, that it made me think of something that I'm a big believer in, and helped me throughout my baseball career, helped me, you know, still today, and still things that I really, really try to focus on. And that's this idea of taking pride in your progress, because throughout this journey, we're always looking to, okay, what's next? What's the next big thing? But between the quote finish line, whatever that is, whether that's a new job, a new promotion, graduating from college, you know, passing your math class, whatever that is, you know, from where you are right now to that milestone, there's a whole, you know, slew of things in between. And it would be a shame for you to get to that point and not have taken pride or enjoyed the in between, because there's a lot of successes in between there. And so, you know, I thought it, you know, kind of coincided nicely there. So that's really, really cool.
Definitely. No, I agree.
So I want to kind of take this beautiful momentum here that we have and finish up on a high note here with the segment that we call Cashing Out. And this is where you leave us with your most valuable tip that we can give the people a little bit of cash to take on the road. This your experience, your lessons, anything that you want to share to leave with the people with.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I want to cash out everything.
I know.
I'm all in. So I'll leave you guys with 2 things. One is, well, my favorite quote, which is, being average is too easy. It does not cost you to give more, to like do an hour extra work than your friends do, you know, to be there when your other friends aren't there. Like, being average is way too easy. And another thing I'd like to leave you guys with, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but this is what allowed me to be where I am today, is just like, use your mentors and use your network, use your professors, because at the end of the day, like, they're teachers because they want to help. And if you're a student for life, they'll pick that up and then they'll be like, okay, I want to help the student. Like, they really want to succeed. Right. So make sure you're best friends with your students with your teachers, and even just the people that work at Lynn, because at the end of the day, you don't know who their best friend is. You don't know who their neighbor is. You don't know how, like, they could literally open the door for you and invite you to coffee with someone you dream of working with. Right. So student for life and being average is too easy.
Love it. Lots of valuable money and cash right there. So Monica, I really appreciate this. This was awesome. You shared a lot of other cash throughout the way, and then you finished off with some great piece of advice there. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I wish you guys all the best.